Create file description. Creating Part 1 of the HFY Sci-Fi Story. Path, MNT user data, outputs exiled from the Galaxy Part 1.docs. File, text, exiled from the Galaxy. Humanity returns as a mighty empire. Part 1. The massive crystalline dome of the Galactic Council chambers loomed silent as Ambassador Marcus Blackwood stood alone before the semicircular arrangement of 12 alien representatives. Their species varied wildly, some gaseous, others crystalline, several vaguely humanoid, yet all regarded humanity's representative with the same cold calculation. "The evidence is irrefutable," boomed Grand Arbiter Zorlax, his translucent exoskeleton pulsing with bioluminescent rage. "Humanity has violated the Compact of Stars. You've developed quantum displacement technology despite explicit prohibition." Marcus stood tall, despite the crushing pressure of alien gazes. "The prohibition was designed to keep us dependent on Council transport networks. We simply sought self-sufficiency, self-sufficiency," hissed Delegate Varix, her serpentine body coiling tighter. "Your kind bypassed 7 security protocols to access restricted archives. You reverse-engineered technology beyond your sanctioned development path. Technology you've shared with every other emerging civilization," Marcus countered, unflinching. "Humanity was denied access while watching less capable species granted interstellar privileges." The Council chamber erupted in outraged chittering and rumbling. Grand Arbiter Zorlax slammed a crystalline appendage, silencing the chaos. "You misunderstand your position, human. This isn't negotiation, it's sentencing." A holographic display activated, showing Earth and its colonies. Marcus felt cold dread as targeting coordinates appeared. "However," Zorlax continued, "her extermination has been deemed excessive. Instead, you will be exiled. The hyperlane network connecting human territories to the galaxy will be severed. No aid, no communication, no return." Marcus stepped forward, despite guards raising weapons. "You fear us. Not what we've done, but what we might become." Zorlax's bioluminescence darkened. "You have one standard rotation to notify your worlds. After that, humanity stands alone." As Marcus was escorted out, he activated a hidden neural transmitter with a subtle eye movement. The message was simple. Contingency Prometheus. They've chosen exile. Light years away, in a hidden facility beneath Europa, Admiral Elena Rivera received the transmission. She looked at the assembled military leadership and nodded grimly. "It's time." Launch Operation Distant Horizon, the judgment had been passed. But what the Council didn't realize was that humanity had been preparing for this betrayal for decades. The next 8 hours passed in a blur of activity across Earth and its 17 colony worlds. Military vessels broke orbit, following predetermined evacuation routes. Civilian transports began loading essential personnel, scientists, engineers, doctors, and critical supplies. "They're shutting down the Centauri hyperlane already," reported Communications Officer Patel. "We've lost contact with New Eden Colony." Admiral Rivera stared at the tactical display in Europa Command. One by one, the glowing lines connecting human worlds to the Galactic Hyperlane network were winking out. "Faster than expected," she muttered. "Status of ARC fleet?" General Thompson stepped forward. "All 37 vessels ready for departure. 23,000 colonists in stasis, seed banks at capacity, industrial fabricators loaded. The question is, where do we go?" "The Council controls all known hyperlanes." Rivera's eyes reflected the blue glow of the display. "And we don't use their lanes. Project Prometheus is ready." A hushed silence fell over the command center. "Admiral, Prometheus was only theoretical. The drive hasn't been fully tested," protested Science Director Abrams. "The energy requirements alone would, and we've been building toward this day for 15 years, what?" Rivera cut him off. "The Council gave us no choice but to make theory reality. Activate the Prometheus protocol." Beneath the ice of Europa, massive fusion reactors hummed to life. The secret shipyards, hidden from Council sensors by experimental cloaking technology, illuminated as 300 vessels of varying sizes began powering up systems that officially didn't exist. On Earth, President Garcia addressed a frightened planet. "Citizens of Earth and her colonies, today we face our greatest challenge. The Galactic Council has betrayed us, cutting our worlds off from the interstellar community without just cause. They fear our potential, our drive, our unique human spirit. His voice remained steady despite the gravity of the situation. But we prepared for this possibility. Even now, our contingency plans are being implemented. Some of us will remain to maintain our worlds. Others will embark on humanity's greatest journey, beyond council space, beyond known stars. Garcia's expression hardened. Make no mistake, this is not surrender. This is not the end of humanity's story among the stars. This is merely the end of the first chapter. The Council believes they have contained us. They will learn their mistake. In time. On the Martian colony, riots broke out as news spread of their abandonment. Security forces struggled to maintain order while secretly loading the colony's quantum research team onto the last outbound shuttle. We can't just leave everyone, Dr. Lakshmi argued as she was escorted to the vessel. Commander Drake gripped her arm firmly. We're not abandoning them. We're preserving humanity's future. Your team's research is essential to where we're going. And where exactly is that? She demanded. Drake's expression was grim. Oh, somewhere the Council can never follow. At Europa Command, Admiral Rivera watched as the last hyperlane to Earth disappeared from the tactical display. Communication with the broader galaxy ceased. Officially, humanity was now isolated, cut off, trapped in their small corner of space. Prometheus fleet reporting ready, Admiral, announced Fleet Commander Wilson. All systems nominal. Awaiting your order. Rivera took a deep breath. The weight of humanity's future pressed down on her shoulders. The Prometheus protocol wasn't just an evacuation plan, it was the most ambitious undertaking in human history. 300 ships carrying 50,000 carefully selected humans, along with the genetic material of millions more, would attempt what the Council believed impossible. The Council thinks they've caged us by cutting off the hyperlanes, she said, addressing the command staff. But while they watched our official research, they missed what we built in the shadows. Today we don't just escape exile, we begin our transformation, she nodded to Wilson. Launch the Prometheus fleet down deep below Europa's icy surface. Massive bay doors slid open. One by one, ships of the hidden fleet emerged, their experimental drives powering up with a distinctive blue-violet glow. These weren't standard fusion drives or even the antimatter engines that powered Council vessels. These were something new, something humanity had developed in secret after discovering ancient theoretical physics equations in a derelict alien vessel found on Pluto's moon Charon. The flagship, Horizon's Promise, led the formation. Captain Thomas stood on the bridge, watching as Earth grew smaller on the view screen. Prometheus drive at full capacity, reported his engineering chief. Spatial coordinates locked. Fold mechanics stable. Thomas nodded. Begin transition sequence. The fleet moved beyond the orbit of Neptune, forming a precise geometric pattern. Energy cascaded between vessels, creating a self-reinforcing field. May our descendants remember this day, Thomas said quietly, and may they return to reclaim what we leave behind. With a flash of light that briefly outshone the sun, the Prometheus fleet vanished, not through the Council's hyperlanes, but through something else entirely. A dimensional fold that transported them beyond the reach of Council sensors, to stars no Council ship had ever visited. Back on Earth, President Garcia received confirmation of the fleet's successful departure. One phase of humanity's plan complete. Now began the harder part for those left behind, to survive, to remember, and to prepare for the day their lost children would return. In the Galactic Council chambers, the representatives celebrated their successful containment of the human threat. Species across the galaxy would sleep easier knowing these unpredictable, dangerous primates were safely quarantined on their homeworld. Grand Arbiter Zorlax settled into his regeneration chamber, satisfied with the day's work. The unusual energy spike detected near Earth's outer planets was surely just the humans' futile attempt to breach the hyperlane barriers. Nothing to concern himself with. How wrong he was. Humanity hadn't been exiled. They had escaped, and in 300 years they would return to a galaxy unprepared for what they had become. Create file description. Creating Part 2 of the HFY Sci-Fi Story. Path. MNT. User. Data. Outputs. Exiled. From the Galaxy. Part 2.docs. File. Text. Exiled from the Galaxy. Humanity Returns as a Mighty Empire, Part 2. The vast darkness of uncharted space stretched before Captain Talia Wright as she stood on the observation deck of the Horizon's Promise. 150 years had passed since humanity's exile from Council space. 150 years of wandering, surviving, and evolving. Approaching the anomaly, Captain. Lieutenant Davis reported over the comm. Readings are off the charts. Talia stared at the swirling energy phenomenon that had drawn their attention. After decades of searching, they might have found what the old records described. All stop. Launch probe Alpha for you, she ordered, her voice steady despite her racing heart. The sleek vessel hovered at a safe distance as the probe disappeared into the pulsing blue vortex. Minutes ticked by in tense silence. Probe telemetry incoming, announced Science Officer Rodriguez, her eyes widening. Captain, it's exactly what Admiral Rivera's journals described. The Nexus, Talia's breath caught. The legendary Nexus, a hub of ancient technology left by a civilization that predated even the Galactic Council. The civilization the first-generation colonists had dubbed Hawthorne the Precursors. Finding it had been theoretical, a desperate hope passed down through generations. Signal the fleet, Talia ordered, and get me a secure line to Admiral Mason on New Terra. Tell him we found it. We've actually found it, and the discovery of the Nexus would change everything. After generations of mere survival, humanity was about to leap forward. 3 months later, Talia stood in the circular chamber of the New Terran Council, addressing the assembled leaders of humanity's 12 colony worlds. Holographic displays showed the Nexus and the technology they'd already begun to extract and reverse engineer. The precursor technology operates on principles we're only beginning to understand, she explained. But what we've confirmed is revolutionary. Their FTL system doesn't rely on fixed hyperlanes like the Council's network. It creates temporary corridors through subspace that can be established between any 2 points. Admiral Mason, now gray-haired but still commanding, leaned forward. You're saying we could create our own transportation network? Independent of Council control? More than that, Talia said, activating another display. We could potentially reach any point in the galaxy, including Council space. A murmur ran through the assembly. Defense Minister Ortiz spoke up. After generations in exile, are we truly considering revealing ourselves? The Council wanted us contained for a reason. If the Council feared what we might become, countered Director Kwan of Scientific Development. Perhaps it's time they learned their fears were justified. Talia raised a hand for silence. We're not suggesting immediate contact, but this discovery accelerates our timetable. The Founders always intended for us to return, not for vengeance, but to claim our rightful place in the galactic community. The debate continued for hours, but in the end, the decision was made. Project Renaissance would begin, a decades-long plan to develop the precursor technology, expand human territory, and eventually return to Council space. Over the next decades, humanity flourished in their hidden corner of the galaxy. New Terra became the capital of what was now called the United Systems Alliance, a federation of human colonies spread across 37 worlds. The precursor technology had revolutionized their civilization, advancing their development by centuries. Massive construction projects created shipyards around the gas giant Titan II, producing vessels unlike anything seen in Council space. Quantum engineering allowed for breakthroughs in artificial gravity, energy production, and material science. Most importantly, the Nexus provided access to the precursor's theoretical physics, enabling the creation of a human-controlled FTL network that spread like a web between their worlds. In medical labs across the Alliance, genetic engineering that would have been forbidden by Council laws created humans adapted to different environments, stronger, faster, more resilient than their ancestors. Neural implants enhanced cognitive function, while nanite technology revolutionized manufacturing and medicine. By the 200th anniversary of the Exodus, humanity had transformed from refugees into a burgeoning power. Their territory expanded steadily, carefully avoiding detection by Council outposts or patrols. The Alliance Navy grew, incorporating technologies the Council had never imagined possible. Infiltration Team Sigma reports successful mission. Commander Jackson informed the Alliance Security Council. The Council outpost on Velaran 4 never detected their presence. We now have complete data on current Council patrol patterns, communication protocols, and identification systems. Director of Intelligence Navarro nodded approvingly. Excellent. Add it to the Heimdall database. We're building a comprehensive picture of Council operations without them having any idea we're watching. There's something else, Annie, Jackson added, his expression troubled. According to intercepted communications, another Council outpost has gone silent, the third this year. The Council is blaming it on something they're calling the Shade. Navarro frowned. We need more information. Could this Shade pose a threat to our operations? The unknown, but we should assume any potential threat to the Council could affect us as well. Agreed. Dispatch reconnaissance teams to investigate these disappearances, quietly. As humanity's covert intelligence gathering continued, a new development emerged. Council ships began appearing in regions close to Alliance space, seemingly searching for something. The Alliance Security Council convened an emergency session. Admiral Chen, commander of the Alliance fleet, presented the latest findings. Council activity has increased by 300% in the Viridian sector. They're searching for something, and they're getting closer to our territories. High Chancellor Reyes, leader of the United Systems Alliance, studied the tactical display with concern. Theories? They could be tracking the energy signatures from our FTL network, offered Science Director Patel. Or perhaps they've detected the emissions from our quantum refineries. Whatever the reason, Admiral Chen said grimly, we need to accelerate our timetable. If the Council discovers us before we're ready, we lose the element of surprise. Chancellor Reyes nodded slowly. Begin Phase 3 of Renaissance. It's time to establish our presence more visibly. Phase 3 involved the creation of a new entity, the Terran Concordat, ostensibly an independent civilization unrelated to humanity. Using genetic modifications and advanced holographic technology, selected Alliance operatives could pass as a newly discovered species while gathering intelligence and establishing diplomatic relations with races on the fringes of Council. Space Commander Jackson was chosen to lead the First Contact team. After extensive modifications and training, he stood before the mirror, hardly recognizing himself. His skin now had a subtle blue undertone. His eyes were slightly larger, and his features had been altered just enough to appear non-human, while still being able to pass as a distant evolutionary cousin. The genetic markers will register as unknown but vaguely similar to several Council races, explained Dr. Lakshmi, chief geneticist of the project. Your internal biology remains human, but external scans will show the expected differences. Jackson nodded, studying his new appearance. And the ship? And the emissary has been constructed using a blend of our technology and what we know of current Council designs. It will appear advanced, but not suspiciously so. Your background story is that your civilization developed in isolation, beyond Council space. Which is technically true, Jackson said with a slight smile. Indeed. The best deceptions always contain elements of truth. The mission launched a month later. The emissary and its crew of disguised humans ventured into the contested region between Alliance and Council space, deliberately allowing themselves to be detected by a Council patrol vessel. Unknown vessel, came the Council transmission. You have entered regulated space. Identify yourself immediately. Jackson, now using the name Ambassador Torin, responded with carefully rehearsed uncertainty. This is the exploration vessel emissary of the Terran Concordat. We are on a peaceful mission of discovery. We did not realize this region was claimed. The Council vessel, a Moreni patrol ship, approached cautiously. In Terran Concordat, you are not in our database of recognized civilizations. We have developed beyond the reaches of your Galactic Council, is it? Our people have only recently developed technology allowing extended space. Travel. A long pause followed as the Council ship scanned the emissary. You will follow us to Outpost Zeta 9. For further verification and diplomatic processing, the Moreni commander finally responded. Jackson exchanged glances with his executive officer. Everything was proceeding according to plan. The infiltration of Council space had begun. At Outpost Zeta 9, the disguised humans underwent extensive scanning and questioning. Their carefully constructed backstory held up to scrutiny, and within weeks word of the newly discovered civilization reached the Central Council, a significant threat. Council resources were increasingly diverted to investigate and counter this UA. Create file description, creating Part 3 of the HFY Sci-Fi Story. Path, MNT, user data, outputs, Exiled, from the Galaxy Part 3. Docs. File, text. Exiled from the Galaxy. Humanity returns as a mighty empire. Part 3, the Council Diplomatic Vessel. Harmony of worlds drifted through the nebula at the edge of recognized space. Ambassador Joltar stood on the observation deck. His four eyes focused on the swirling gases that obscured their destination. Sensors are detecting multiple vessels approaching. Ambassador Sao, reported Captain Drex. Or configuration unknown. Joltar's skin rippled with anticipation. The Terran Concordat representatives? Presumably, though these ships are... The captain hesitated. They're unlike anything in our database, significantly more advanced than expected from a newly discovered civilization. Curious, Joltar murmured. The Council had received reports of this new power emerging from unexplored space, establishing colonies and trading posts along the outer rim. Protocol demanded diplomatic contact before they expanded further. A sleek vessel emerged from the nebula, its hull gleaming with an iridescent material that seemed to shift between solid metal and translucent energy. It was flanked by smaller craft with distinctive angular designs. "They're hailing us," announced the communications officer. On screen for an ordered Joltar, straightening his ceremonial robes. The view screen activated, revealing a humanoid figure with subtle blue-tinted skin and slightly enlarged eyes. He wore a uniform of charcoal gray with silver insignia. "Greetings, Council representatives. I am Commander Tarek of the Terran Concordat. Welcome to Meridian Nebula." Joltar performed the traditional Council greeting gesture. "I am Ambassador Joltar of the Galactic Council. We come in peace to establish formal diplomatic relations between our civilizations." Commander Tarek's expression remained pleasant but measured. "We are honored by your presence, Ambassador. Please follow our escort to Meridian Station where appropriate accommodations have been prepared." As the Council vessel followed its escort, Joltar studied the Concordat ships with growing unease. Their technology was far beyond what a truly isolated civilization should possess. Either the Concordat had been developing in secret for millennia, or they had obtained advanced technology through other means. Meridian Station proved equally impressive, a massive structure suspended within the nebula, using the charged particles for power generation. The architecture was elegant and efficient, with smooth curves and minimal ornamentation. The Council delegation was escorted to a spacious conference room overlooking the nebula. Commander Tarek entered, accompanied by a female who was introduced as Diplomatic Envoy Lyra. "Before we begin formal talks," Tarek said, taking a seat across from Joltar, "perhaps you could enlighten us about your council. We have limited information about your governance structure and member species." Joltar launched into the standard diplomatic briefing, explaining the Council's history, its current composition of 27 full member species and over 100 associate members, and its role in maintaining galactic peace and stability. "Fascinating," Lyra commented. "And how does the Council handle emerging civilizations? What process determines their status and rights? And a thorough evaluation period assesses technological development, cultural stability, and potential for peaceful integration," Joltar explained. "Some species require centuries of guidance before full membership is considered. And if a species develops too quickly or in ways the Council finds concerning," Tarek asked, his tone casual but his gaze intense. Joltar's skin rippled slightly. "The Council has procedures for containing potentially destabilizing influences until they can be properly integrated." Containing," Lyra repeated softly. "An interesting choice of words, Ambassador." The meeting continued for hours, the Concordat representatives asking increasingly specific questions about Council history, policies regarding technology sharing and past conflicts. Joltar found himself repeatedly referring to his aides for information that wasn't part of standard diplomatic briefings. Later, in his private quarters, Joltar reviewed the day's interactions with his senior aide. "Vexa, they know too much. Ask too specifically, Joltar said. It's as if they're confirming information they already possess rather than learning it for the first time. Vex nodded. And did you notice their physical characteristics? There's something familiar about them, similar to several council species yet distinct. Joltar agreed. Run a genetic comparison against all known species in our database, and including extinct and quarantined species. Vex asked carefully. Joltar hesitated, then nodded. All of them. The diplomatic meetings continued for 3 days, with tours of concordate facilities revealing industrial capacity and scientific advancement that grew increasingly alarming. The concordate representatives were unfailingly polite but maintained a subtle distance, revealing little about their history or social structures. On the 4th day, Vex entered Joltar's quarters with a troubled expression. Ambassador, the genetic analysis results are concerning. Joltar reviewed the data, his 4 eyes widening. This can't be possible. The concordate representatives show genetic markers similar to humans. Not just similar, Wanda, Vex corrected. They are human, genetically modified, but human nonetheless. Joltar sank into his chair. Humans have been quarantined for 3 centuries. Their worlds are isolated, their hyperlanes severed. They cannot have developed this level of technology, let alone established an interstellar presence. The evidence suggests otherwise, Ambassador. Joltar's mind raced through the implications. We need to report this to the High Council immediately. Prepare a secure transmission. Gairon, there's a problem with that, Vex said hesitantly. Our communications array is experiencing difficulties. The concordate engineers have offered to assist, but they're blocking our transmissions, Joltar realized. They know we've discovered their secret. A chime at the door interrupted them. Commander Tarek stood outside, still smiling pleasantly. Ambassador Joltar, I understand you're experiencing communication problems. Perhaps we should discuss this situation privately. In the heart of Council space, aboard the massive station serving as the Terran Concordate's primary embassy, Ambassador Catherine Davis, known to the Council as Envoy Thala, received Tarek's encrypted message. The code was simple. The Echo Protocol initiated docking. It was time for the next phase. For decades, the disguised humans of the Terran Concordate had been establishing themselves throughout Council space. They had trading agreements with 14 species, research partnerships with 9 more, and had even provided military assistance to several Council worlds threatened by piracy or border disputes. Now, carefully placed agents would begin activating dormant networks of influence. Key Council officials who had benefited from concordate technology or trade would receive reminders of their relationship. Strategic information would be leaked to specific journalists and academics. Historical records about humanity would mysteriously become accessible in academic databases. Meanwhile, in Alliance space, Admiral Vega, a direct descendant of Admiral Rivera who had led the original Exodus, reviewed the final preparations for the homecoming fleet. 300 vessels, representing the pinnacle of human technological achievement, stood ready. Unlike the hidden Prometheus fleet of 3 centuries earlier, these ships were designed to be seen, to inspire awe and respect. All battle groups report ready, Admiral, announced Fleet Commander Diaz. Quantum communications network is secure. The Nexus is generating stable corridors for our approach. Admiral Vega nodded, studying the tactical display. After generations of preparation, humanity was ready to reveal itself to the galaxy that had exiled them. But recent developments complicated the plan. The shade activity has increased again, Vega noted, pointing to red markers on the display. 3 more Council outposts gone dark in the past month. Intelligence still believes it's a splinter faction, Diaz replied. Former Alliance personnel who broke away decades ago, developing on a more aggressive path. If true, they could jeopardize everything we've worked for, Vega said grimly. The Council must see us as potential allies, not conquerors. Deploy special forces teams to locate the Shade's base of operations. I want this threat contained before we make our official appearance. Back on Meridian Station, Ambassador Joltar found himself in an increasingly precarious position. His attempts to alert the Council had been subtly but effectively blocked, while Commander Tarek continued the diplomatic charade. I know what you are. Joltar finally said during a private meeting, his patience exhausted. You're humans, descendants of a quarantined species that should never have been able to develop this technology. Tarek's pleasant expression didn't waver. A quarantined? An interesting perspective, Ambassador. We prefer to think of it as a motivation. The Council will not stand for this deception. Joltar warned. The Council. Tarek replied calmly. I will soon need to reassess many of its long-held policies. Times are changing, Ambassador Joltar. The galaxy is changing. We're merely providing an opportunity for the Council to change with it, willingly. Create file description. Creating Part 4 of the HFY Sci-Fi Story. Path, MNT, User Data. Outputs Exiled from the Galaxy, Part 4.docs. File, text. Exiled from the Galaxy. Humanity returns as a mighty empire. Part 4, the Grand Council chamber on Axiom Prime hadn't seen such chaos in centuries. Representatives from 24 species argued vehemently, their voices rising to a cacophony that the chamber's acoustic dampeners struggled to contain. Holographic displays showed the human fleet positioned at strategic points throughout Council space, having emerged simultaneously from what appeared to be artificially generated wormholes. Grand Arbiter Desix slammed his crystalline gavel, sending a pulse of energy across the chamber that momentarily silenced the panic. This hysteria serves no purpose, he declared, his exoskeleton pulsing with barely controlled bioluminescence. The humans have returned. The question before this council is how we respond. Delegate Thraz of the Mreni Confederation rose. Their so-called Terran Concordat has infiltrated every level of our society. They have technological outposts in 17 systems, trade agreements with 14 species, and military advisors on 9 council worlds. This wasn't just infiltration, it was invasion by stealth. And yet they haven't fired a single shot, countered Delegate Voss, one of the newer council members. For all their supposed power, they've issued demands for diplomatic recognition, not surrender. Because they don't need to fire shots, Thraz retorted. They've positioned themselves too well. Half the Outer Rim economies depend on Concordat trade now. They've made us vulnerable without a fight. Analyst Lorix stood quietly at the back of the chamber, still processing the magnitude of what her investigation had uncovered. The humans hadn't just survived exile. They had transformed themselves into something the Council had never anticipated. Their technological evolution had followed a completely different path from Council development, making their capabilities difficult to assess. A junior aide rushed to her side, looking flustered. Analyst Lorix, there's a situation at the embassy quarter. The Concordat embassy, it's changing. Live feeds from the diplomatic district showed the previously modest Concordat embassy transforming before stunned onlookers. The facade reconfigured itself, the subtle blues and grays of the Concordat replaced by bold blacks and silvers, bearing the insignia of the United Systems Alliance. Above the entrance, a holographic display showed the unmistakable outline of Earth with the text, "Humanity remembers." They're dropping all pretense, Lorix murmured. Grand Arbiter Desix received the update and swore under his breath. We're running out of time. What do we know about their capabilities? The Council's military advisor, General Krell, stepped forward. Their ships utilize technology we've never encountered. Energy signatures suggest power generation far beyond our capabilities. Their FTL method bypasses our hyperlane network entirely, rendering our strategic choke points useless, and our intelligence suggests they have infiltrated our defense networks extensively. Can we fight them? Desix asked bluntly. Krell's expression was grim. Not without unacceptable losses and not with any certainty of victory. The chamber erupted in renewed chaos. Centuries of believing themselves the supreme power in the galaxy had not prepared the Council for this moment. Desix raised his hands for silence. We have no choice but to open negotiations. Send word to Admiral Vega that the Council acknowledges receipt of their ultimatum and requests a diplomatic summit. As preparations for the summit began, activity aboard the Alliance flagship Reclamation intensified. Admiral Vega reviewed security protocols with her staff, acutely aware that this moment would define humanity's relationship with the galaxy for generations to come. Ambassador Davis reports that 17 Council species have already made private overtures for separate agreements. reported her political advisor. They're fracturing under pressure. Vega nodded, unsurprised. And the shade? Commander Diaz's expression darkened. Still no contact, but we've tracked their movements to the Valaran sector. They've established some kind of base there. Special forces teams are en route. Karen. They could complicate everything if they launch another attack during negotiations, Vega said. Double the teams and authorize maximum force protocols. The Shade cannot be allowed to derail what we've worked toward for 3 centuries. The summit was arranged on neutral territory, a space station, in the Meridian Nebula where Commander Tarek had first revealed humanity's true nature to Ambassador Joltar. The symbolism wasn't lost on either side. The Council delegation arrived first, led by Grand Arbiter Desi himself, accompanied by representatives from the High Council and military advisors. They were escorted to the conference chamber by Concordat staff, who now openly wore Alliance uniforms. Admiral Vega entered last, flanked by her senior officers and Ambassador Davis, who had removed the holographic disguise that had hidden her human features for decades. Grand Arbiter, Vega acknowledged with a slight nod. Admiral, Daisies returned stiffly. The Council has convened to address your demands for recognition. One not demands, Arbiter. Statement of fact. Vega's voice was calm but unyielding. The United Systems Alliance exists. We control 117 worlds beyond Council space. Our technology, our military, and our economy are not subject to negotiation. Davis stepped forward, placing a data crystal on the table. This contains our proposed terms for peaceful coexistence. In summary, full diplomatic recognition of the Alliance as a sovereign power, reparations for the illegal exile of humanity 3 centuries ago, and a complete restructuring of the Council to ensure equal representation for all species, including those currently classified as developing. Dizik's bioluminescence darkened. You speak of illegal exile? Your ancestors violated the Compact of Stars, accessed forbidden technology. One technology you freely shared with other species while denying it to us. Davis interrupted. The Council feared humanity's potential and sought to contain it. That decision led directly to this moment. The negotiations continued for hours, then days. Council representatives oscillated between indignation and barely concealed fear. The Alliance team remained firm, leveraging their superior position while carefully avoiding any appearance of outright threats. On the 3rd day, a diplomatic breakthrough seemed imminent when alarms blared throughout the station. Admiral, Commander Diaz reported urgently over the secure channel. The Shade has launched simultaneous attacks on 6 Council worlds. They're broadcasting in human language, claiming to act in humanity's name. Vega's expression hardened. Show me that. The tactical display revealed devastating attacks on Council core worlds. Millions of civilians were at risk. Worse, the attackers were using modified Alliance technology and identifying themselves as Akaro's humanity's vengeance. Desix received similar reports and turned to Vega with fury in his eyes. Said, "This is your doing. This negotiation was merely a distraction, while your true forces launched their attack, and the Shade is not under Alliance control," Vega stated firmly. "They are renegades, separatists who broke from our society generations ago, pursuing a more aggressive agenda. In convenient deniability," snarled a Council military advisor, Vega made a swift decision. "You don't have to believe me. Watch what we do." She activated her command channel. "All fleet elements, this is Admiral Vega. Deploy to the attacked worlds immediately. Defensive operations only. Protect Council civilians and infrastructure. Engage Shade forces with extreme prejudice." She turned to Desix. "Your defense forces are outmatched by Shade technology. Ours isn't. Allow us to demonstrate our intentions through actions rather than words." Desix hesitated, then nodded grudgingly. "Very well, Admiral. But know that the Council will be watching closely." Within hours, Alliance vessels appeared in orbit around the attacked worlds, deploying defensive screens to protect population centers and engaging the Shade's ships with overwhelming force. Alliance ground teams evacuated civilians and coordinated with local Council forces. On Velaran Prime, one of the hardest-hit worlds, Commander Jackson led a special forces team against the Shade's command center. After fierce fighting through the occupied government complex, They breached the central chamber to find a figure waiting for them. "Commander Jackson?" The figure greeted him. "Or should I say, Commander Tarek? You've played so many roles it must be hard to keep track." Jackson raised his pulse rifle. "You're the leader of the Shade?" The figure stepped into the light, revealing features that were unmistakably human but altered far beyond Alliance genetic protocols. "Director Novak of Special Projects Division. At least I was before the Alliance abandoned the Prometheus Doctrine." Recognition dawned on Jackson. "The Lost Chimera Expedition? You disappeared 80 years ago." Novak smiled coldly. "Not lost. Liberated. We realized the Alliance was becoming too much like the Council. Cautious, diplomatic, willing to compromise. Humanity wasn't exiled so we could return as supplicants seeking recognition. We were exiled so we could return as conquerors. That was never the..." Create file description. Creating Part 5 of the HFY Sci-Fi Story. Path, MNT, user data outputs exiled from the galaxy, Part 5.docx, file, text. Exiled from the galaxy, humanity returns as a mighty empire, Part 5, the blue-green sphere of Earth, grew larger on the view screen as the Alliance flagship Reclamation approached. Admiral Sofia Vega stood silently, emotion tightening her throat. Her ancestors had left this world 3 centuries ago, fleeing into the unknown, rather than accepting the Council's sentence of isolation and stagnation. Now, humanity was returning in triumph. "Earth Orbital Control is responding to our hails, Impice," reported Commander Diaz. "They sound confused." Vega smiled faintly. I imagine they would be. The descendants of those left behind never expected to see us again. When the Council had severed Earth's connection to the hyperlane network, not all humans had escaped with the Prometheus fleet. Millions remained on Earth and its colonies, cut off from the broader galaxy, forced to develop in isolation. According to intelligence gathered by Concordate operatives, Earth's civilization had advanced technologically, but remained contained within the Sol system and a handful of nearby stars, limited by the Council's periodic patrols that ensured their quarantine remained intact. "Open a channel," Vega ordered. The view screen shifted to show a stunned-looking man in a uniform Vega didn't recognize. "This is Earth Orbital Command," he said cautiously. "Identify yourselves immediately." Vega stepped forward. "This is Admiral Sofia Vega of the United Systems Alliance flagship Reclamation. We are descendants of the humans who departed Earth during the Exodus 300 years ago. We've come home." The man's expression cycled through disbelief, shock, and finally cautious hope. "That's, if this is some Council trick, it's cruel." No trick, Commander. The exile is over. Humanity has returned to the galactic stage, as equals, not supplicants." Vega gestured, and the view widened to show more of the bridge crew, all unmistakably human despite centuries of adaptation. "Request permission to send a diplomatic delegation to Earth." The next hours passed in a blur of activity. Earth's government, now called the Sol Confederation, scrambled to respond to the unprecedented situation. Security protocols designed for first contact with alien species were hastily adapted for returning human cousins. Ambassador Catherine Davis led the diplomatic team that shuttled down to Earth's surface, landing in Geneva at the headquarters of the Sol Confederation's government. She felt a strange sense of displacement walking on the soil of a homeworld. She knew only from historical records and cultural memory. President Leon Garcia of the Sol Confederation waited to greet them, flanked by security and advisors who regarded the Alliance delegation with undisguised wonder. "Welcome home," Garcia said simply, extending his hand in the ancient human gesture. Davis clasped it firmly. "Thank you, Mr. President. We've waited a long time for this day." The formal meetings began immediately. Davis explained the Alliance's origins, their development beyond Council space, and finally, their triumphant return and the newly signed Meridian Accords. "You're saying the Council actually recognized your government? As equals?" asked Foreign Secretary Rivera incredulously. "Not willingly at first," Davis acknowledged. But we left them little choice. Our technology had advanced beyond theirs. Our influence had spread throughout their territory via the Concordat, and we had positioned ourselves as essential to numerous council economies. And there was no war? Garcia pressed. A limited conflict with a human splinter group we call the Shade, but no direct war with the council. Davis clarified. We achieved through strategy and patience what could never have been won through force alone. The Sol officials exchanged glances, clearly struggling to process the magnitude of what they were hearing. For 3 centuries, we've built our society around one central belief, Garcia said slowly. That we were abandoned, forgotten, that we would have to make our own way without help or allies. It defined us. Davis nodded in understanding. While we built our society around the promise that we would return, not just for ourselves, but for those left behind. Every generation of Alliance citizens has learned about Earth, about the sacrifice made by those who remained. We never forgot. As discussions continued, differences between the 2 human civilizations became apparent. The Sol Confederation had developed along more centralized lines, focused on efficiency and security in their isolation. The Alliance had embraced diversity and adaptation, incorporating elements from discovered precursor technology and developing unique solutions to the challenges of building a civilization in uncharted space. Despite these differences, the shared human heritage created an immediate bond. Within days, preliminary agreements were signed for technological exchange, cultural missions, and eventually, full political integration. While the diplomatic mission continued on Earth, Admiral Vega turned her attention to a more volatile situation. The capture of Director Novak had not ended the threat from the Shade. Intelligence reports indicated multiple cells still active throughout both Council and Alliance space. He's refusing to cooperate, reported Intelligence Chief Navarro after another interrogation session. But we've managed to decrypt portions of the Shade's communication network. They're planning something big, something they're calling Final Judgment. Vega frowned. Specifics? Nothing concrete yet, but the target appears to be the Council capital on Axiom Prime. The timing would coincide with the first Joint Council Alliance session next month. Vega studied the tactical display showing the positions of Alliance and Council forces. They want to destroy any chance of cooperation between humans and the Council. Inform Grand Arbiter Desix immediately, but keep the warning confidential. If there are Shade sympathizers within the Council structure, we don't want to tip our hand. The warning proved prescient. 3 days later, Alliance intelligence intercepted a Shade operative attempting to infiltrate the Council's primary defense network on Axiom Prime. The operative carried schematics for a quantum destabilizer weapon capable of collapsing the artificial singularity that powered the Council's capital city. The attack would have killed billions, including most of the Council's governing body. Vega explained to Grand Arbiter Desix via secure communication, and it would have been traced back to Alliance technology. Desix's bioluminescence pulsed with agitation, creating the impression that your peace overtures were merely a pretext for a devastating first strike. Exactly. The Shade doesn't want peace or cooperation. They want vengeance for humanity's exile, regardless of the cost. And there are elements within the Council who share similar extremist views, Desix admitted, who believe any accommodation with humanity is a mistake. Vega leaned forward. Then perhaps it's time for moderates on both sides to take a more active role in shaping our shared future. The joint operation that followed was unprecedented. Alliance and Council intelligence services working together to identify and neutralize Shade cells throughout civilized space. The cooperation built trust between former adversaries and demonstrated the potential benefits of the new alliance. Meanwhile, on Earth, the integration of Sol and Alliance societies progressed rapidly. Exchange programs brought Alliance scientists and engineers to Earth, while Sol representatives traveled to New Terra and other Alliance worlds. The cultural reunion was not without friction. 300 years of separate development had created distinct identities and values, but the shared heritage provided a foundation for reconciliation. In Alliance headquarters on New Terra, Chancellor Reyes reviewed the latest reports from Earth with satisfaction. The genetic diversity from Earth's population will strengthen our own, noted Health Director Patel. Sure, their unmodified human genome provides a valuable baseline for our continuing adaptations, and in their industrial capacity will significantly enhance our production capabilities, added Economic Minister Wong. Even with limited resources, they've developed remarkably efficient manufacturing processes. Reyes nodded. And we provide them with access to the galaxy, advanced technology and protection from council elements that might still wish them harm. A mutually beneficial arrangement. 1 month later, representatives from the Alliance, the Sol Confederation, and the Galactic Council convened on the newly constructed Harmony Station, a massive diplomatic hub positioned at the nexus of their respective territories. The station's architecture incorporated elements from all three civilizations, symbolizing the new era of cooperation. The inaugural session of the Galactic Concordance, as the reformed interstellar body was now called, opened with a speech from Grand Arbiter Desix. 3 centuries ago, this council made a decision born of fear. He began, his voice carrying to all delegates. We saw in humanity a reflection of our own worst impulses, ambition unchecked by caution, innovation unfettered by tradition. We chose to exile rather than engage, to contain rather than collaborate. Today we acknowledge,